Allahi wa barakatuh. In the last lecture, we were discussing about greed and miserliness, and about how we are engaged so busily in earning this world, how we are influenced by materialistic ideas, forgetting most of the higher values of life. In Islam, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Khairul umur awsatuha," the best of things, the best path is the middle path. In anything that you may conceive of, extremities are always bad. If you go to the extreme in anything, it's always harmful. If a person keeps silent to an extent that one would consider he was dumb, that he would not even speak when he should, then that man is a useless member of a community. But at the same time, at the other extreme, if there is a man who is a chatterbox, he talks and allows no one to talk, then he becomes a bore. And Imam alayhi salam said, whenever you find someone who talks too much, be assured that somewhere the hinges are loose. So, both the extremes are bad. The doctors will tell you that if you don't eat, you starve yourself to death. But if you overeat, then you overeat to death. So all the extremes are bad. If you withhold your money, don't spend even for yourselves, you are a miser, a niggardly person who is harming oneself. But if you become extravagant and start spending everything that you hold, then you will also end up a poor and dejected person. You have got to strike what is called khairul umur awsatuha, the best path in every affair is the middle road. In akhlaq, in ilmul akhlaq, we find that the qualities in human beings are either found in extremes. Either a person is really a miser or he is extravagant. A person is timid, easily frightened, or he is foolhardy. That means there are two extremes. In English they say, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. That means there are two extremes. One either is so timid that he doesn't want to take any initiatives. But there is another group which is foolhardy. That means they would rush where people with wisdom would not rush. So, in akhlaq, what Islam teaches us is to strike a middle road. That means you are neither miser nor extravagant. Allah says, وَلَا تَبْسُطْهَا كُلَّ الْبَسْطِ. Do not open your hands fully like this. That means do not be extravagant. Do not tie your hands to become miser. Do not open your hands fully to lose everything. You have got to have a balanced attitude. So you will find that here there is bukhl or miserliness on one extreme. On the other extreme there is israf. And in between is what is called sakhawat and generosity. So, when this is understood, you will find there are two types of people for which the Prophet has repeatedly warned us. that be careful of these two extremes, which I would like to discuss tonight in brief, because I would not like to take my full time. As far as your time is concerned, of course it is very valuable. But I have some time at my disposal, but I would not like to make use of it fully because of certain personal reasons. In any case, one extreme is, in Gujarati, we have an anecdote which we used to learn and teach when we used to teach Gujarati. Once there was a meeting of animals. I mean, this is not hadith, this is not riwayat, this is just a fable. Once there was a meeting of animals, and Mr. Camel stood up and said that I can see that the tail of the dog is crooked, and the neck of the swan is also crooked, and the horns of the bull are crooked. And he started counting things which were all crooked. The beak of the parrot is also crooked, and the claws are crooked, and the nails are crooked. In Gujarati, this is a poem by Dalpatram, who was a great poet of Kathiawar. He says that when all the animals heard this, each one being included for one crooked part of the body, one very simple animal stood up and said, Huzur, anyanu to ek vanku, apna adhar chhe. Everyone has got one crooked part of the body. You have 18 crooked parts. Because if you look at Mr. Camel, the whole thing is crooked. There is hardly a part of a camel's body which is straight. The hump is crooked. Even the eye's shape is crooked. Even the whole thing is crooked. You see, when an animal, when the camel sits down, it's difficult for it to rise because of its crookedness. So what Dalpatram was trying to say is this, that there are certain people who have a habit of seeing everything crooked. You perform in the best possible manner you can. You go to such a person, he will be busy immediately fault finding. It is said, and rightly so, that wives are least convinced of the perfection of their husbands. The first person who knows everything about the husband is the wife, because of the intimacy that they have between man and woman as husband and wife. So they say that one fellow who was actually being regarded as a peer by his followers claimed that at night he was flying like a bird out of the window. And the peers, they swallow every story, and so do the murid. The murid started propagating that, do you know, our peer flies at night. He comes out of the window and he flies like a malaika and things like that. And it gradually reached the wife. Well, the wife could not say that there is nothing like that. If she says that, then the revenue will stop. She did not say that there was nothing like that, but when she sat alone with her husband, she said, I saw you fly, but it was crooked. You did not fly straight into the air. Crooked. So you can imagine that when a person has a habit and tendency of looking at everything in a perspective which is negative, that person is on an extreme where he is as bitter as he could be. In every aspect, in his talk, he is bitter. In his dealings, he is bitter. In Persian, there is an anecdote of a scorpion. That a person saw a scorpion getting drowned into the river. He took a leaf and tried to rescue and save that scorpion from being drowned. And holding it on the leaf like this, he crossed the river. The moment he crossed the river, he thought that the scorpion will be really grateful to me for having saved its life. So it transferred the leaf from the leaf onto its palm to say goodbye. The moment it reached the palm, it struck him. In Persian they say that the striking or the fang of that scorpio strikes you, not because it has got any enmity or malice, it is its habit to strike. So this man or a woman is bitter always and poisonous, not because he has got some malice, no, it is his habit. You perform, you serve, you do the best you can. No one on earth is perfect. But there are two types of people. One will always view positively and try to get the best out of it. The other will always try to pour poison over it and make it as bitter as possible, because that is his vocation and that is the way he lives. Can't help it. This is one extreme. On the other extreme, there is another yet more dangerous person. He is always flattering. Always flattering you, always. He tries to be so sweet. So in Urdu they say, na halwa ban ke chat kar jaye bhooke, aur na kadwa ban ke jo chakhe so thooke. न हलवा बन के चट कर जाए भूखे और न कड़वा बन के जो चखे सो थूके. Neither be bitter that whoever tastes spits you out, nor become a halwa that you become the by anyone. That is the reason why you find that there was in Abbasid Empire, there was a person, a minister who used to serve his king. One day the king had some problem with his tummy. So he said, Mr. Minister, I believe they say that for the stomach upset, tomatoes are good. Tomatoes. The minister said, yes, they are good. They have these qualities. If they are ripe, they have these qualities, they soothe your feelings, and he started praising tomatoes as if he were going to sell them. And immediately the king said, but so-and-so told me that tomatoes have got some bad effects also. He said, yes, they are very bad sometimes. Yes, they can kill you. They are poisonous sometimes. And he started condemning tomatoes like anything. So the king said, Mr. Minister, how can you in one breath praise and also condemn? And the answer he gave is, Your Majesty, I am employed by you, not by the tomatoes. I am employed by you. I have not been employed by tomatoes. As far as you are concerned, I will agree to whatever you say. I am Haji Ha. Not once, twice. These are called flatterers. These are the people who will always try to flatter with the maximum of insincerity. Sometimes it smacks, it smells of insincerity. You can immediately understand that the man is trying to make a fool out of you. Well, both of them are dangerous. This fellow who is trying to praise you and flatter you, while you yourself know that you don't deserve that praise, it becomes immediately wajib upon us to tell the person to stop flattery, the way Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah salam alayhi did. A man came to flatter him. Mawla knew about it, immediately stopped him and said, stop. The Prophet has said, Uhsu turab ala wujuhil maddahin. When people come to flatter you, just take a handful of dust and throw into his mouth. That doesn't mean do it. It means tell him to clear off. Tell him to stop that. Or correct him. There are people who will come and tell you, आप जैसा दुनिया में पैदा ही नहीं हुआ. And a man feels so very much elated. There is no possibility of anyone being such that he is matchless unless he is a masoom. Otherwise, there are people and people, each better than the other. So there, we give room to hypocrisy, munafiqiyat. Here, in this bitterness, we give room to tuhmat. We give room to undue criticism. Here you find a man who is really trying to flatter you. The moment you turn your back, he has got a dagger in his hand, ready to strike. And because he has a habit of flattery, therefore he will flatter you, and he will also flatter your enemy, because he would like to please everyone. And these are the most dangerous elements in humankind. And there, because it is the habit now of being bitter and criticizing everything, therefore you find stories being fabricated by people saying, Aisa hua hoga, it could have happened this way. Aau thayu hase, this might have happened this way. You hua hoga. And all sorts of this. Presumptions create an atmosphere and climate for accusations, for allegations which are unfounded. All that comes from bitterness. We have got to strike a middle path. In dealing with such people, and also in saving ourselves from becoming one of them, never let us form a habit of being bitter. Even if an enemy has done something good, let us be generous enough to acknowledge it. I give example, and this example has been given 101 times. Take 10 pieces of nuts, say almond. Give it to your son or a friend, 10 pieces. 9 of them sweet and 1 bitter. He will eat 9, and when he puts the 10th one, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, for the whole day, that bitter one will remain on his tongue. He will forget those 9 sweet ones that you gave, but his tongue will bear witness for the whole day for that one bitter almond. एक कड़वा खाया था. And when we form a negative habit, we forget good things about a person, what he has done. We always try to find out what he has not been able to do, or he might have committed a mistake or an error, because error is something natural. No one on earth is perfect. Everybody has good. But this man will always look for a pitfall, for an error, and try to criticize. He will not talk of those 9 good nuts. He will only talk of that one nut which has fallen into his mouth. This is that habit. And here the extreme is bad. So what shall we do? When you reach a stage of akhlaq, and when we try to acquire perfection in akhlaq, then we strike a balance, what is called adalat. We praise where the praise is due. And we criticize also positively. That means when I criticize, I must also present an alternative to say, if this could have been done this way, I think it would have been better. But give the credit where it is due. And it is something which we don't like to discuss. But every one of us has got to be very careful about this on the day of judgment, on the day of Qiyamah. We will all be asked. We will all be asked for the type of judgments that we have passed against each other with great responsibility, because from their ghibat emanates, from their accusation originates, everything comes out. So when the Prophet said, look at what is being said and do not look at who is saying it, this is what he meant. And there might be someone who you don't like. Well, hear him first and look at what he says. Do not look at who is saying. This is exactly what the Prophet was trying to tell us, that strike a balance. You may have your likes and dislikes. Now, when this is applied to family life also, you will find, those of you who are experienced in matrimonial cases will find that sometimes in the whole episode in a family, there is nothing wrong between the two. What is wrong is the bitterness. What is lacking is the praise where it is due. I don't know why. Why cannot a husband say one day in the house, in presence of the children and the wife, that the cooking today has been excellent? Huh? કેમ કહેવાય? માથે ચડી જશે. How can we say this? The moment we try to praise the wife too much, then the wife starts drumming on the head. It's not so. Just say one day that the cooking has been excellent. When the praise is due, to say this. That is why it is sunnah for the guest, not for the husband. For the guests, when they come to our house or when we go, it is sunnah, the Prophet said, to compliment the cooking and say, may Allah increase your rizq. The cooking has been excellent. To say this, food served has been good. We have been pleased. We liked it. When you say that, the host feels better. The lady of the house feels better. And that is the best compliment that you have given. And it is sunnah to say that. But if husbands make this habit of just paying a compliment to the wife and say, or the daughter, whoever has served, that it has been good. That is one thing. Why can't a husband, I'm talking something very intimate, but it is something with which we are concerned day in and day out. Why can't a husband pay compliment to his wife and say that in this particular sari, you really look beautiful? Why can't you say that? The only thing we can say is, Khawa mani maknati. So you see, when the husband makes the habit of looking everything crooked and trying to find fault in everything that the wife does, then that household becomes a hell. But where the husband has that good charm of acknowledging that which is good, however, with maximum of sobriety. There are people and people. There are people who dance while giving compliments. And there are people who maintain sobriety but they give compliment. You see, but at least give that compliment for which the family is waiting. And when you will do that, you will find that this becomes heaven on earth. And this exactly applies to the whole society. May Allah grant us tawfiq. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. For the 40th of Marhum Wali Muhammad Keshavji, and therefore for him and for all the Marhumeen, I request Surah Fatiha. We are fortunate to have two very distinguished guests here tonight. One, of course, has come from Iran, one of the most distinguished and renowned preachers, Agha Hujjatul Islam, Agha Sayyid Salihi, who is very well known as an official preacher in Iran, and he is normally heard in those very special circles where ulama assemble to hear the majalis. And he is also very well known for the beautiful and most correct recitation of Dua Kumail. Inshallah ta'ala, we may have an opportunity, although we did not know about it. He has read 10 very important and good majalis during Arba'in in Majma Islami. Inshallah, we will have the opportunity of listening to him. And together with him is his host, who is normally resident in London, Aghay Hujjatul Islam, Sheikh Al-Alami, who is not a stranger to Stanmore. He has been coming here quite often. We welcome both of them, and we hope that we shall have the visit of all the distinguished guests who come from abroad, together with Aghay Hujjatul Islam, Al-Alami, Hafadhahum Allah Ta'ala. Now, coming back to the subject that we have been discussing tonight, there has got to be a summary or an appraisal of what we have been discussing, so that from Friday next, or inshallah later, we can have a new series of subjects. The fact is that Allah subhanahu wa